What's going on, everyone? Happy Saturday to everyone. Hopefully, everyone is doing well and having a great weekend so far. If you got snow over the last 24 hours, hopefully you fared out well. And if you don't like snow, I got good news for you. For the majority of people, it is going to melt rather soon. It is time now for the Saturday edition of the weather update for Saturday, February 17th, 2024. If you're new to my channel, this is where we do the daily weather update. We talk about short range and long range forecasts. Sometimes we talk about weather records and extreme weather happenings around the world. Today we are going to talk about the short and long range forecast in the United States. If you like this type of content, subscribe down below and give this a thumbs up. All right, we have to look at the satellite picture first. There's a lot of things to see on the satellite. Some of it, which is actually really interesting to see. First off, you will notice here in the Midwest, the plains, even across to Pennsylvania, though it's harder to see in Pennsylvania, you will see something very scientific here on the satellite picture. And no, these are not clouds that you're seeing here, like in Illinois, up in Iowa, back in Missouri. That is snow cover from yesterday's snowfall event. Most places picked up 3 to 6 inches of snow, isolated 8-inch amounts. Portions of the Midwest and Ohio Valley, the storm did overperform. Then you come to the case of Pennsylvania, where you had widespread 2 to 4 inch amounts, but then you had these isolated band areas that set up anywhere from the Ohio Valley across Pittsburgh to just south of State College through the Lehigh Valley into New Jersey. We talked about this potentially happening yesterday, and by golly, it did happen. We'll talk about snow totals with that in just a moment because you had a real big surprise. Taking a look in the south, you see this huge area of cloud cover. As expected, the southern jet is flexing its muscles, and it's raining in northern Florida. That's going to sink even further south. Orlando, Disney, if this is your weekend to be there, it's not looking good. Expect the rain to pick up later in the day, and that should linger right in through Monday morning, exiting Monday with a caboose, which will be an area of low pressure that will develop and then go out into the ocean. On the west coast, you're not spared either. Atmospheric river, it has set up again, and you're expecting rainfall, and things are getting a little more interesting for you now. I'll show that to you when we get to the forecast. First off, let's take a look in the southeast. You can see here Texas, Gulf Coast, New Orleans, and then really when you get to Florida, you can see here, yeah, rainy conditions are starting up. Just a few showers down in Orlando right now. That will increase in coverage this evening and into tonight. Tomorrow is going to be a much wetter day for you. And you can see here, once again, Texas Gulf Coast. This is that other piece of energy that will develop into an area of low pressure in the Gulf and go over Florida tomorrow night. Taking a look at the Northeast, there are snow showers, snow squalls. There have actually been a couple snow squall warnings up in New York State, but the main bulk of that system is gone. This is just lake effect snow squalls from some energy that's in the atmosphere. Now let's go out to the West Coast. Yeah, look at here at Northern California, like Eureka and whatnot. There's some heavy rainfall starting to set up. That's concerning. San Francisco, you have some moderate to steady rainfall setting up for you as well. And this even continues up in Oregon and up into Seattle, and unfortunately, this is going to last several days. All right, let's take a look at snowfall totals. We're going to do this multiple different ways. This is from the National Weather Service at Mount Holly. They tweeted out this picture. Take a look at this. You can see in the blues, anywhere from 1 to even up to 6 inches. These darker blues show 4 to 6 inch amounts. But then you look, you follow the Pennsylvania Turnpike, then you go on Interstate 81, then Interstate 78 right into New Jersey. See this orange and then this really bright orange? 8 to 12 inches. And then there was a 12 plus area that set up. This was just super impressive. 2 to 4 inch per hour rates occurred in this. There was one report of 5.2 inches of snow in 1 hour last night. Just totally incredible. Here in Philadelphia, I live in the northeast section of Philadelphia. We had about 2.5 inches of snow last night. It was down to about 2 when I measured it, but there were several people that reported close by to me, and they all said about 2.5 inches. Looking at my Davis, that actually worked out to about just shy of 1/4 of an inch of precip. 2/10 of an inch of precip was what I had. I let it melt down, and that's what it came out to, the liquid equivalent. All right, taking a look at this now. You can see here, back across the Ohio Valley, anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of snowfall. Locally, 5+ inch amounts happened. I believe there were a couple 7 and 8 inch reports. So that's relatively impressive. Now we have to go back to Mount Holly, New Jersey. Look at these reports here. Let's just scroll down. Frenchtown, New Jersey, 13 inches of snow. No one was expecting that far to the north. I said there could be an area where there would be a big surprise, but when I was saying big surprise, I'm thinking, okay, maybe the forecast of 6 that I was going for in that area would bust higher to 8 to 10 inches. Now, I never thought anyone would get 13. Or, let's scroll down even further. There is a 13.8-inch amount in Center Valley, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's nearly 14 inches of snow. Big surprise. So, yeah, it verified, but it just verified even higher than I thought it would be. And of course, they only had winter weather advisories with 1 to 3 or 2 to 4 inches expected up there. Yeah, that was clearly ended up being a winter storm warning criteria up in that area. Take a look at the national hazards map. You can see there are a few snow squall warnings still ongoing in New York State, and the rest of the country is relatively quiet, expecting some windy conditions up in the Dakotas. Then we go out to the West Coast, and it's rather active out in the West Coast. You can see here, California, there's a lot of flood watches that are up. There's winter storm warnings in the mountains. Could be several feet of snow in the mountains. Could even be some windy conditions as well. Let's click on this, shall we? Let's see here. Let's take a look here. Yeah, you can see here they're talking about anywhere from 4 to 10 inches of snow at above 6,000 feet. Then above, it says 5,500 feet on Sunday evening. That's where you get up to 1 to 2 feet and even up to isolated 4 feet of snow and wind gusts up to 55 miles per hour in the mountains of California. Wow, that is super impressive. Now we have to take a look at this. You can see day 1 precipitation. It's going to get it's going to fill in over South Florida, like I was talking about. So it's going to be rather wet for you. California, yes, some rain today, but today is not the heaviest rain day. Although radar in Northern California right now does look relatively impressive. Day 2, yeah, now things start getting wetter in California. Florida, still some rainfall tomorrow. Not as much rainfall. And then we come to day 3, continues in California. Florida, you clear out. Day 4, still showers. And day 5, it finally clears out in California. Then in the Tennessee Valley and Ohio Valley, we introduce some precipitation as there will be a storm system moving across there. Some of that is the energy from the storm system in California. Days 1 through 7 totals. Yeah, look at this. Generally, right along the coast of California. Widespread 3 to 5 inches of rainfall. Locally 5+ inch amounts, and 2 to 3 inches in Florida. There could be an isolated spot that comes in with a 4-inch amount closer to the Atlantic coast. Alrighty, moving on now, we have to take a look at this. This is from the Weather Prediction Center as well, and let's go back to day 1 here. You can see slight risk in Northern California today, but on the day 2 outlook, they introduce a moderate risk area not too far from LA, just northwest of LA. And you can see here that is concerning. And then day 3 is also concerning. There's also another moderate risk of excessive rainfall, meaning flooding, potentially mudslides. You know the drill. You've been through it a lot this winter. All right, moving on now to the Storm Prediction Center. Nothing to talk about today, although they do issue these discussions, and I should show you this. Snow showers should continue through the afternoon. Brief, localized bursts of heavier snow. This is for New York State and into central Pennsylvania. State College, Pennsylvania, Williamsport, Lock Haven, Bradford, Elmira, New York, Binghamton, Wichita. You know these areas. You could potentially see some reduced visibility with some of these localized bursts of heavy snow. All right, no organized severe thunderstorms today or tomorrow. However, on Monday, they introduced just east of the Bay Area in San Francisco, California, a marginal risk of severe weather. Why? Well, if we scroll down here, they do talk about a couple of potentially localized but brief tornadoes or wind damage possible. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Again, it's just localized. It's only a marginal risk. It's day 3. It could get upgraded to a slight risk because, remember, day 3, that's pretty far out. All right, let's take a look at the NAM model here. And we can see here the rainfall increases across Florida. The rainfall continues in the west coast with mountain snows. Even the mountains of Oregon and Washington, you will see snow as well. And look at this. Florida, it just continues to be wet. And the NAM model is showing actually quite a bit of rainfall tomorrow. And southern Florida, look at this. Wow. If you get some of these training segments popping up, you could see locally much higher amounts than what the Weather Prediction Center is going with. Look at accumulated precipitation. Yeah, look at this. Right across Lake Okeechobee, you do see here a localized 5-inch amount area. And let's just advance this for the west coast. Yeah, look at this, the precipitation. It continues, but the NAM is actually not as impressive as the Weather Prediction Center. Mind you, when the Weather Prediction Center makes those precipitation maps, they use a ton of ensembles, which is a model essentially run several different times. That's how they come up with those maps. Let's take a look now at what is being shown on the GFS, and we're going to take this into the longer range. On the GFS, quiet for much of the country this weekend, aside from the southeast and aside from the west coast. It's going to be a cold weekend in the northeast, but as I advance this, you can see that cold. Take a look. Maybe it's hard to see here. Let's switch to 500 millibar. Look at that. That cold in the east, it's going to exit. And look at this. A small ridge starts to set up. And with that, some warmer air is going to move into the northeast. Then you see here, as we get into Thursday of next week, there's a piece of energy over the Ohio Valley. That is the next storm system we have to watch. That storm system from Florida, actually, when it gets into the Atlantic, take a look here. Doesn't move all that much. And that may be a factor that messes up this storm system, the Ohio Valley. It might slow it down. We'll have to keep an eye on that. This storm system over the Ohio Valley will eventually try and transfer off the Delmarva somewhere. And look at this. It could be a potential snow threat for northern New England. Not talking big amounts. It's far out, 162 hours out here. Talking next Friday and next Saturday. But it's something we will have to watch, as it's going to create generally windy conditions. And yes, another burst of cold air will come into the northeast. It's not going to last very long. It's going to be short-lived. We're going to see a warm-up this week, then this is going to come, and it's going to be just a 1 to 2 day cold period. And right behind that, watch what happens. See these red lines here, these red isotherms? That is more warm air. And eventually that is going to flood into the east. And as we get into the longer range, yes, look at this. Warmer weather, and yes, potentially maybe some severe weather as we head into the end of the month across the plains and maybe even into Kentucky and Tennessee valleys. That's something we will have to keep an eye on. It's just one run of the GFS. Look at the previous run. But it has shown up for 3 runs now, so it's something we take note of. Let's take a look now at the long-range European ensemble. And I want to show this to you because it really shows what I'm talking about, how any cold snap is going to be short-lived. So here's Saturday. Here's today, and now we head into Sunday. There's the cold air in the northeast. Look at that. It exits really quickly. Much of the country, you're seeing these warmer colors here. Much of the country is above average temperatures as we head in through much of this week. Right along the southeast coast, because of that storm system hanging around, it's not going to really do much for your weather on the coast. It is going to keep things slightly below average. And you can see slightly below average in the west as well. But then we come to next weekend, and we're at Friday now. You can see another cold snap in the northeast. So places like Boston, Albany, New York, yeah, it may be colder for you, even into the Great Lakes in Chicago. But watch what happens. Once we get through next weekend, boom, warms up again. Anywhere from Texas right on up in through the Midwest, Chicago, back down to St. Louis, back down to Oklahoma City. You're going to be talking about above average temperatures. And as we head into the following week, that will spread to the east. So places like Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, all these cities and places are going to be well above average. You could even see days well into the 50s and into the 60s up into the mid-Atlantic region. Then behind that, could there be another cold snap? Well, we're pretty far out now, but look at this. Not seeing it. You have that west to east zonal flow. When that sets up, you're not looking at any chances for any real cold air. And once again, we'll have to start watching the plains. There could maybe be a severe weather threat or two to end this month going into the month of March. We'll have to keep our eyes on that. All right, shall we look at the Climate Prediction Center? Let's briefly do that. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. You can see much of the country is above average, slightly below average down in the southeast. Precipitation outlook, dry across much of the central states, slightly below average in the southeast, aside from that rainstorm in Florida. Once that exits, it does dry out. Slightly above average in the northeast, that's because of the storm system late week, slightly above average on the west coast. And temperatures, 8 to 14 day outlook, slightly above average in the west, above normal for all of the eastern half of the U.S., and you will see here with precipitation just slightly above average for much of the country, near normal to slightly below average in Texas and southern Florida. Alrighty, folks, that does it for today's weather update. We'll have another one again tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic Saturday afternoon.